Night had settled over St. Vincent's Hospital like a heavy velvet curtain. The city outside pulsed faintly with the glow of streetlights and the distant hum of traffic, but inside the halls were eerily quiet. The usual daytime chaos, ringing phones, hurried footsteps, and endless announcements had vanished. Only the soft hum of fluorescent lights, the faint beeping of monitors, and the occasional shuffle of a nurse on rounds filled the night air. Among the few who moved with purpose was Lieutenant Sarah Hawk Mallory, the night nurse on duty. She was an unassuming figure to most, mid-30s, dressed in standard scrubs, hair tied back in a practical bun. Her movements, however, betrayed a precision and discipline that set her apart from the other staff. Each step was measured, each glance calculated. She scanned every corridor, every shadow, with the meticulous attention of someone trained to notice threats invisible to ordinary eyes. Few could have guessed that beneath the calm exterior lay the mind of a decorated sniper, a woman who had served multiple tours overseas, who had stared death in the face countless times and returned unflinching. Sarah made her way down the long, polished corridor, checking vitals charts, adjusting IVs, and quietly reassuring a frightened patient in room 212. She offered soft words, a smile that could calm anyone, but her eyes never stopped moving. There was a rhythm to the night, a pattern she had come to know over months of shifts, which hallways were empty, which rooms had restless patients, which exits were least monitored. Outside, shadows flickered across the parking lot. Two men lingered near the entrance, their faces partially obscured by hooded jackets. They paced slowly, eyes darting toward the hospital doors and back toward the street. Staff passing by barely noticed them, assuming they were harmless loiterers or relatives of patients. Sarah, however, noted their posture, the subtle weight shifts that betrayed nervous energy, and the way one kept his hand tucked near his jacket's inner pocket. A quiet warning bell rang in her mind, a familiar alert she had learned to trust in life-or-death situations. She didn't panic, not yet. She continued her rounds, moving past the elevators with deliberate steps. Her mind cataloged the hospital's layout like a tactical map. Each window, each stairwell, each security camera's blind spot was logged. This was instinct for her, honed over years of military service, but tonight it hummed louder than usual. There was something off, though she couldn't yet name it. A young nurse emerged from the supply closet, yawning. "Slow night, huh?" she said, clearly relieved at the calm. Sarah smiled faintly. "It's always quiet until it isn't," she replied softly, her eyes scanning the lobby's glass doors. The comment sounded like a casual joke, but the girl didn't catch the weight beneath it. Sarah's gaze lingered on the shadows outside once more. Every muscle in her body tightened subtly, a coiled spring ready to strike. She paused by the nurse's station and pulled a small notebook from her pocket. It wasn't for charts or patient notes. It contained quick sketches of hallways, security blind spots, and potential points of cover. A habit, a ritual, a silent preparation. Most nights it seemed unnecessary. Tonight, the pencil felt heavier in her hand, as if the pages themselves sensed something impending. The hospital's silence pressed against her like a warning. Somewhere, hidden in the quiet corridors, danger was stirring. Sarah's breath remained steady, her outward demeanor calm and collected, but inside, her mind raced. Every instinct from her military past screamed that tonight would not remain quiet. And then, somewhere in the distance, faint and almost imperceptible, she heard it, the subtle click of a lock being tampered with, the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel outside the entrance. The storm was coming. Sarah straightened, her eyes narrowing, every sense sharpened. The night nurse routine would soon give way to something far more lethal. Unseen, unnoticed, she was ready. No one in the hospital knew it yet, but Lieutenant Sarah Mallory was preparing for war. The first sound was subtle, almost ignorable, the sharp, shattering crash of glass from the hospital's main entrance. It was followed by shouted commands, harsh and foreign, echoing off the sterile walls. Panic erupted instantly. Patients screamed, clutching blankets and loved ones. Nurses scrambled to secure rooms, their radios crackling with frantic calls to the front desk and security. Sarah Hawk Mallory was already moving. Years of battlefield training surged through her veins. Where ordinary people saw chaos, she saw pattern, positions, vulnerabilities, escape routes. Her mind cataloged every detail in an instant. The men were heavily armed, dressed in black, and moved with precision that spoke of professional training, not random criminals. From the nurse's station, a young orderly pressed himself behind the counter, trembling. Who are they?" he stammered. Sarah didn't answer, she didn't need to. Instead, she directed him with a calm authority. "Help the patients in room 304. Move quietly." The orderly obeyed, still frozen with fear but bolstered by her presence. The terrorists advanced quickly, corralling doctors and patients into a makeshift holding area in the lobby. Their leader barked orders with brutal efficiency, brandishing a weapon to enforce compliance. Panic spread through the hostages like wildfire, but Sarah's eyes were steady. She memorized the attackers' positions, two at the entrance, one by the elevators, another patrolling the main hallway. She noted the points of cover, carts, reception desks, even chairs, anything she could use to shield herself or attack. A nurse whimpered nearby. We're trapped," she whispered. Her hands trembled as she clutched the arms of a wheelchair. Sarah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, her voice calm and commanding. "No, you're not trapped. Just stay quiet and follow my lead." The nurse looked at her, doubt and hope warring in her eyes. Sarah's gaze swept the room again, calculating, assessing, planning. Every second counted. From her vantage, she realized the attackers had underestimated the hospital's layout. Staff knew shortcuts, blind spots, and stairwells. Sarah had mapped them all in her mind. The moment presented itself. One of the guards at the back of the lobby shifted slightly, exposing his flank. Sarah's hand brushed the small pouch hidden under her scrubs. Inside was her rifle, compact but deadly accurate. She had smuggled it in months ago, a precaution she never thought she'd need until now. As the rifle clicked into readiness, she took a deep, steadying breath, recalling her missions overseas. The patience required, the precision demanded. Nearby, a doctor tried to reason with one of the attackers. "Please, don't do this. These are innocent people." The gunman's response was a cold, silent glare, a clear reminder of the stakes. Every hostage was a human shield. Every wrong move could be fatal. Sarah moved silently through a side corridor, unseen by the terrorists, positioning herself above the lobby on a service balcony. Her eyes tracked every movement below. Heart steady, mind razor-sharp, she weighed her options. She could take a long-range shot and eliminate one target without endangering the hostages, or she could continue observing, learning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Somewhere deep in her memory, the battlefield rules whispered, patience first, aggression second. Panic was the enemy, fear was the enemy, calm was the weapon. As the hostages huddled together, unaware of the guardian watching from above, Sarah readied herself. The night nurse was no longer just a caretaker. She was a silent hunter in enemy territory, preparing to turn the tables. The hospital, once a place of healing and quiet routine, had become a war zone, and Sarah Mallory was ready. The storm had arrived. From her perch on the service balcony, Sarah Hawk, Mallory assessed the situation with the cold precision of a trained sniper. The terrorists moved hostages in tight clusters, barking orders and occasionally swinging their weapons to enforce compliance. Every movement, every glance, every hesitation told her something about their discipline and weaknesses. Her heartbeat was steady, her breathing even a stark contrast to the chaos below. She adjusted her compact rifle, ensuring the sight alignment was perfect. She didn't aim to kill indiscriminately. Every shot had to neutralize the threat without endangering a single hostage. Her first target was the gunman closest to the back of the lobby, patrolling near a patient on a stretcher. One misstep, one tremor could spell disaster. Sarah's finger hovered lightly on the trigger as she calculated distance, trajectory, and wind. Her training in Afghanistan replayed in her mind like a memory she could summon at will. Long hours waiting, studying the enemy, counting breaths, analyzing shadows. The principles were the same here: patience, precision, and control. The first shot went off. Quiet, controlled, perfect. The terrorist collapsed silently behind the counter, leaving no time for alarm. A hushed gasp escaped from the hidden staff behind a supply closet. No one had seen Sarah. They only noticed the sudden absence of a threat. Encouraged, she moved her sights to the next target, timing her shot with the terrorists' movements. Each elimination was surgical, precise, removing obstacles without alerting the others. Her eyes flicked constantly, scanning for shifts in the attackers' formation. The hostages were terrified but mostly unaware of the invisible force protecting them. A young boy clutched his mother's hand tightly, whispering, "Who's saving us?" Sarah could have answered, but she remained unseen, blending into shadows like a ghost. Her presence was felt only in the sudden shifts of control. A gunman down here, a blocked path there, all executed without the hostages realizing the danger had been mitigated. One of the attackers noticed the fallen colleague and raised an alarm. He shouted, pointing in the direction of the sound. Sarah froze, calculating. She could take the shot now, but the risk to nearby hostages was too high. Instead, she pulled back slightly, keeping her position concealed, and watched as the leader barked orders, reorganizing his team. Every movement they made gave her more information, more advantage. Her tactical mind worked like clockwork. She scanned exits, side corridors, and blind spots, noting potential escape routes for the hostages and planning her next moves. A security guard cowered near the elevator, unsure whether to intervene or flee. Sarah silently directed him with a glance and a subtle hand signal, showing him where to hide while still maintaining control. Outside, police negotiators tried to communicate through megaphones, unaware of the sniper overhead. Sarah considered contacting them but decided against it. The hostages' safety came first. She had to finish this quietly, one precise shot at a time, ensuring control without tipping her hand. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Every twitch of a shoulder, every whispered command from the terrorists, every subtle shift of hostages' bodies was analyzed and catalogued. Then the opportunity arrived. One of the terrorists broke formation, moving alone near the ICU entrance. Sarah exhaled slowly, aimed carefully, and the shot rang out. The target dropped silently, his weapon clattering harmlessly to the floor. The remaining terrorists froze, momentarily uncertain of what was happening. Panic flickered in their eyes. Sarah didn't move yet. She observed, recalculated, and prepared for the next strike. Each elimination had to be perfect. Each misstep could end in catastrophe. From above, hidden in shadows, Sarah was more than a nurse. She was the unseen protector of every life in that lobby, turning the tables on trained killers with a calm, surgical precision that no one could have predicted. The first shots had been fired. The war had begun. The lobby had fallen into a tense silence, broken only by the distant cries of frightened patients and the harsh barking of the remaining terrorists. Sarah Hawk Mallory retreated from her sniper perch, moving silently through a narrow service corridor. The distance to the next target was too close for long-range shots. Now she had to rely on her other skills. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated, a ghost weaving through the hospital's shadows. She crept toward the ICU, where the terrorists had herded a cluster of hostages. A young doctor, pressed against the wall, whimpered, clutching a clipboard like it might shield him from bullets. One of the terrorists, larger than the others, wielded his weapon aggressively, scanning the hallway for threats. The man was alert, trained, and dangerous, but Sarah was faster, sharper, smarter. Her hand brushed against the familiar weight of a tactical baton hidden beneath her scrubs. Improvised, yes, but deadly in trained hands. She timed her movements with a predator's patience, advancing slowly as the terrorist spun his attention back to the hostages. A small step, a breath held, then a controlled strike to the side of the man's head. He crumpled silently, unconscious but unharmed in a lethal sense. Sarah didn't pause. She retrieved his weapon, ensuring the safety of the doctor and the hostages. A single, silent gesture instructed them to stay low. As she moved deeper into the hallway, Sarah's mind raced. The terrorists were organized but predictable. They relied on intimidation and firepower, unaware of an unseen adversary in their midst. She disabled another attacker who attempted to flank the hostages near the nurses' station, using a combination of swift strikes and blunt improvisation. Each move was a dance of life and death, performed with surgical precision. Staff and patients hid in corners, trembling, but the fear in their eyes began to mingle with something else. Awe, someone was protecting them. A shadowy figure moving unseen, neutralizing threats silently and efficiently. Whispers spread among the hostages. "Who is that?" "I think someone is saving us." The terrorists, growing frustrated, began splitting into smaller teams, patrolling side corridors and stairwells. Sarah anticipated every maneuver. She positioned herself near a stairwell, using the handrail for balance, observing an attacker moving toward an exit. In one fluid motion, she disarmed him, redirecting him toward a storage room and securing the door. Not a sound escaped. Her mind constantly ran calculations. Every hallway, every blind corner, every potential vantage point. She scanned the ceiling vents and the emergency exits, considering escape routes for hostages and ambush points for attackers. Every piece of furniture became cover, every corridor a potential battlefield. A young nurse, peeking from behind a door, mouthed a silent, "Thank you." Sarah only nodded, her expression calm, almost serene, betraying nothing of the adrenaline surging through her body. Fear had no place here. Panic had no place. Only control mattered. Finally, she reached the ICU's main entrance. One terrorist remained, a younger man holding a hostage at gunpoint. Sarah's mind raced. A head-on confrontation could trigger disaster, but the alternative, hesitation, was unacceptable. She inched closer, each step measured. The man's attention flickered for a brief second as he scanned the hallway. In that heartbeat, Sarah acted. She struck with precision, incapacitating him without firing a shot. The hostage stumbled free, eyes wide with disbelief. Sarah motioned for them to remain quiet, then disappeared into the shadows again, ready for the next confrontation. The hospital had become a maze of tension, fear, and whispered hope. The night nurse was no longer merely a caretaker. She was a specter in scrubs, a guardian moving silently through close quarters, neutralizing threats and protecting lives with unmatched skill. Every move she made left the terrorists uncertain, every strike untraceable, every second bought for the hostages' survival. The enemy was formidable, but so was she. And the battle was far from over. Sarah Hawk Mallory crouched in the shadows of a quiet utility room, her breath steady despite the chaos echoing through the hospital. Every movement outside, a shuffled foot, a whispered command, the scrape of a cart, was catalogued and analyzed. Her sniper training had taught her that information was as lethal as any weapon. Tonight, that lesson would be critical. She had just neutralized several attackers in the ICU corridor, buying precious time for the hostages, but the battle was far from over. Moving quickly yet silently, she scanned the area for clues about the terrorists' larger plan. That's when she noticed a small, blinking device hidden beneath a bed in one of the empty ICU rooms. Her stomach sank. A timer attached to a crude but deadly explosive. The bomb was designed to force the police back and to keep hostages under tight control, a ruthless contingency she had anticipated but had hoped wouldn't exist. Sarah's mind raced, cataloging the device's components and calculating how much time she had before detonation. The timer read 60 minutes, but she knew these things could malfunction or be rigged to trigger early. Every second counted. Pulling her radio from her belt, she whispered a carefully coded message to the SWAT team stationed outside. Her voice was calm, clinical, professional. Interior hostages confirmed. Device located in ICU, immediate tactical response required. Entry routes are compromised. I'll provide guidance from within. The operators outside were startled. No one expected intelligence from inside the building. Yet, Sarah's credentials and precision in previous strikes gave them no reason to doubt her. Meanwhile, the terrorists moved hostages deeper into the hospital, splitting them into smaller groups. The leader's frustration was evident. Shots had been fired, men incapacitated, and hostages now seemed harder to control. Sarah observed, taking mental notes on their routines, their communication patterns, even subtle tells that revealed their training and weaknesses. Each tiny detail could mean the difference between life and death. She crouched low, peering into a supply closet where a terrified nurse huddled with a young child. "You're safe," she whispered, her voice firm yet reassuring. "Stay quiet, don't move until I say." The nurse nodded, her wide eyes reflecting a mixture of terror and trust. For these people, Sarah was becoming a silent guardian angel. Returning to the ICU, she examined the bomb carefully. It wasn't sophisticated, but deadly enough. Her military background allowed her to identify the wiring, the triggers, and the points of potential disarmament. Still, she had to wait for the perfect moment. Any miscalculation could be catastrophic. Patience was critical. From the corner of her eye, she noticed one of the terrorists wandering toward the ICU, checking on hostages. Sarah ducked into the shadows, holding her makeshift sniper rifle for close-range cover. One fluid motion, one well-aimed strike, and he collapsed silently behind a medical cart. The remaining terrorists, unaware of the silent eliminations, continued their patrols, growing increasingly anxious. Minutes stretched into hours in tense rhythm. Sarah coordinated with the SWAT team outside, providing precise intel on attacker positions, hostages, locations, and even hidden stairwells for safe evacuations. Every suggestion, every piece of guidance she offered, increased their chances of success. As the bomb ticked closer to detonation, Sarah moved like a phantom, transitioning from shadow to shadow, checking exits, assessing threats, and preparing to act decisively. She recalled battlefield experiences, the quiet calculation before neutralizing threats in hostile environments. Her instincts told her the final confrontation would be here, in these dimly lit halls, and that every choice she made would determine who survived. In that moment, Sarah realized the full scope of the challenge, not just the hostages or the terrorists, but the clock itself. 60 minutes could end lives, and she alone held the key to preventing disaster. The hospital had become a battlefield of shadows, precision, and intelligence, and Sarah Mallory was at its center, orchestrating a deadly, silent plan that no one outside could yet comprehend. Time was running out. The hospital rooftop was bathed in the pale glow of the city's lights. From her vantage point, Sarah Hawk Mallory surveyed the lobby below like a hawk circling prey. Every movement, every flicker of shadow, every twitch of a finger on a trigger was visible to her trained eyes. The terrorists were growing reckless, their frustration mounting as their carefully orchestrated plan began to unravel. Earlier, Sarah had neutralized several of their men within the corridors. Now, with the remaining attackers split into smaller groups, she could take advantage of distance and precision. Her rifle rested lightly against her shoulder, the scope framing a clear view of the chaos below. Each target was deliberate, each shot calculated to protect the hostages, not to kill indiscriminately. The first shot rang out silently, muffled by her suppressor. A gunman guarding a cluster of hostages in the lobby crumpled to the floor, his weapon clattering harmlessly against the tile. Panic flickered in the eyes of the remaining terrorists. They looked around, desperate, uncertain, realizing that someone unseen was dismantling their control. Sarah adjusted her position slightly, keeping her profile hidden against the rooftop's parapet. Another shot, precise, surgical, eliminated a second threat. The hostages began whispering to each other, all mingling with fear. Who is doing this?" one nurse murmured. No one could answer, and no one would. Sarah was a ghost, a silent guardian, a lethal shadow moving between life and death. Police outside began to notice the strange pattern. Reports of incapacitated terrorists, each downed without alarming the others, reached their commanders. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. A sniper inside the building, or on a nearby vantage point, was systematically taking out the attackers. The realization sparked new urgency in their coordination with Sarah. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, the terrorists sensed a predator among them. Their confidence, once unshakable, wavered. Every movement was scrutinized. Every corner became a potential threat. One of the younger terrorists, desperate to regain control, tried to rally his team, only to be swiftly neutralized by Sarah's calculated precision from above. The leader barked orders, his voice strained and angry. He didn't know it yet, but his carefully planned hostage operation was collapsing under the influence of an invisible force. The remaining attackers hesitated, glancing at one another nervously, sensing the unseen hand that had struck them. Sarah observed their hesitation, noting which ones were trained, which were inexperienced, and which posed immediate threats to the hostages. A police negotiator outside tried again to reason with the attackers, unaware that their odds had already shifted drastically. Sarah's silent strikes had bought critical time. Her mind raced. The bomb still ticked in the ICU, hostages needed safe exits, and every second brought new opportunities and dangers. From the rooftop, she took another clean shot, this time disabling a gunman attempting to flee toward the stairwell. The remaining terrorists froze, glancing toward the ceiling as though the very walls were hunting them. Sarah's identity was still hidden. Her calm, deliberate movements, combined with flawless execution, were beginning to terrify the attackers. Inside, a few staff members whispered to each other, noticing the pattern of rescues. "It's someone trained, someone precise," one murmured. Even as fear coursed through their veins, hope ignited. Their unseen guardian was systematically turning the tide. As Sarah repositioned herself for the next shot, she took a moment to observe the hostages' faces. Fear, yes, but also trust. Relief, small and fragile, blossomed with each silent strike. She had become more than a nurse tonight. She was the protector, the unseen avenger, the ghost they would never forget. From the shadows above, the battlefield of St. Vincent's Hospital had a new master. And the terrorists were finally beginning to understand a terrifying truth. The night nurse was a sniper, and she was unstoppable. The upper floors of St. Vincent's Hospital were silent now, except for the muffled cries of terrified hostages and the ragged breathing of the remaining terrorists. Sarah Hawk Mallory moved like a shadow through the dimly lit corridors, her every step deliberate, her senses razor-sharp. She knew the final confrontation was close. The terrorist commander was somewhere ahead, likely armed and desperate. The bomb in the ICU continued its ominous countdown, a constant reminder that time was a weapon as deadly as any gun. Sarah had calculated its wiring, assessed its triggers, and mentally rehearsed her approach. She had already communicated critical intel to the SWAT outside. Now it was up to her to neutralize the last threats and secure the hostages. Turning a corner, she spotted the commander, tall, broad-shouldered, wielding an assault rifle with a look of frustrated rage. His remaining men flanked him, tense, alert, eyes darting to every shadow. The leader barked orders, trying to regroup and intimidate the hostages, but the fear in his own voice betrayed him. Sarah assessed the scene. A direct assault would be risky. She needed strategy, precision, and timing. She ducked behind a nearby supply cart, blending into the shadows. The commander's attention was fixed on a group of hostages, giving her the opening she needed. One fluid motion, a controlled throw of a distraction, and two of his men were incapacitated silently. Panic flashed across his face. The remaining terrorist fired a shot blindly in her direction. Sarah rolled, narrowly avoiding the bullet, then struck with a swift combination of hand-to-hand techniques honed in military combat. He crumpled silently to the floor. The commander, enraged, turned fully toward her and met a calm, unwavering gaze that froze him in place. "I don't want to hurt you," Sarah said, her voice firm but quiet, cutting through the tension like steel. "Release the hostages or this ends badly for you." Her calm control was intimidating. She was no longer just a nurse. Every movement she had made, every silent strike, every sniper shot had built to this moment. The commander hesitated, calculating, realizing too late that his carefully orchestrated plan had crumbled under the relentless efficiency of one woman. Sarah lunged with precision, disarming him in seconds. The gun clattered to the floor. In the same movement, she disabled the bomb, cutting wires and neutralizing the timer with only seconds to spare. Relief surged through her chest, but there was no time to linger. A few remaining hostages were still trapped nearby. Using a series of hand signals and whispers, she guided the terrified staff and patients towards safety, ensuring every life was accounted for. Her tactical mind moved seamlessly between threat assessment, hostage extraction, and disarming remaining attackers. One by one, she neutralized the last few terrorists with surgical efficiency, leaving the commander kneeling, defeated, and utterly exposed. Outside, police and SWAT teams finally moved in, storming the hospital corridors. They found the situation almost under control, thanks to Sarah's precision and planning. The hostages were alive, the bomb disabled, and the remaining terrorists subdued. The commander stared at her in disbelief. You're just a nurse," he stammered. Sarah's calm, unwavering expression revealed the truth. "No, I'm a protector," she said, "and you lost." As SWAT officers cuffed the remaining terrorists and escorted them outside, Sarah checked on each hostage, ensuring they were unharmed. The hospital was safe again, but the memory of the night's chaos would linger for everyone who had witnessed it. Even as the city's sirens wailed in the distance, Sarah quietly retreated to a shadowed corner, slipping back into the guise of a simple night nurse. She had saved countless lives, neutralized professional terrorists, and disarmed a bomb, yet no one outside her silent observation truly understood who had orchestrated it all. The battlefield was clear. The hostages were safe, and the night nurse, unknown to most, had proven that even in the quietest roles, a warrior could rise. The sun was beginning to rise over the city, casting a pale orange glow through the shattered windows of St. Vincent's Hospital. The chaos of the night had finally subsided. Sirens wailed in the distance as police and SWAT teams escorted the last of the subdued terrorists into armored vehicles. Hostages huddled together, some weeping, some silently holding hands, all shaken yet alive. Sarah Hawk Mallory moved quietly through the corridors, checking on staff and patients, her calm demeanor unshaken. To the world, she was still the night nurse, the one who had quietly tended to them during their darkest hours. But beneath the scrubs, beneath the soft, reassuring voice, the truth lingered like a shadow. She had orchestrated the survival of everyone inside the hospital, neutralized the attackers, and disabled a bomb that could have ended dozens of lives. A young nurse approached, clutching a clipboard and trembling. Who saved us?" she asked, her eyes wide with awe and confusion. Sarah only smiled faintly, her face serene, masking the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "You all saved yourselves too," she said softly. "You followed instructions, stayed calm, and trusted each other. That's what kept everyone alive." The nurse looked unconvinced but grateful. No one could imagine the full extent of what had happened. Outside, reporters and news crews began arriving. Phones buzzed, social media exploded with messages about the mysterious rescuer. Authorities praised the SWAT and police units for their response, unaware of the silent guardian who had tilted the balance. The truth, that the night nurse had been a trained sniper, a warrior, and the decisive force behind the survival of everyone inside, remained unknown. Sarah stepped onto the hospital's rooftop, breathing in the crisp morning air. From this vantage, the city spread beneath her, lights fading with the dawn. She scanned the streets, watching for signs of lingering threats, her military instincts refusing to rest. The hospital was safe, but danger could return at any moment. Vigilance was not optional. It was a duty she carried like a second skin. Memories of the night replayed in her mind, the terrified eyes of the hostages, the cold efficiency of the terrorists, the hum of her suppressed rifle, the tactile calculation of every strike, every incapacitation. It had been a perfect storm of chaos and precision, and she had been its calm center. Yet even as relief washed over her, she felt no triumph. Survival was enough. Control had been enough, and the city was safe for now. Inside the hospital, police officers and hospital staff worked together to restore order. The wounded were treated, the frightened reassured. Whispers spread through the halls. Who was she? She moved like someone trained. But no one could put the pieces together. Sarah's identity as a sniper remained a secret. To the staff, she was just the night nurse who had remained calm under fire. To the world, she was a quiet professional, performing her duties without fanfare. Alone on the rooftop, Sarah allowed herself a moment to exhale fully. The city slept, oblivious to the danger that had nearly claimed lives within its walls. The hospital hummed back to life, monitors beeping, floors polished, life continuing as if nothing had happened. Yet she knew better. She had been there. She had controlled the chaos. And she would always be ready, silently watching, silently protecting, because that was who she was. The shadows of the night had passed, but their lessons remained. The hospital was no longer just a place of healing. It had become a battleground, a test of courage, and a testament to the strength of one hidden warrior. Sarah Hawk Mallory adjusted her scrubs, turned, and descended the stairs. No one knew the night nurse was a sniper, and perhaps that was exactly how it should be. Her eyes flicked one last time to the city below, sharp and vigilant. Calm had returned, but the night nurse would never stop watching. Danger could return, and when it did, she would be ready. Unseen, unstoppable, untouchable, a guardian in scrubs, a sniper in the shadows.